The legislation that came into effect yesterday has imposed more severe restrictions on the public of Greater Manchester. I think for me, I try and keep it simple in my mind, and the two key messages that I've got is that, families, you can't go and visit somebody else in their home or in their garden, and if you're out and about, then you shouldn't be in a group of more than 6 people. Now, there's a lot more to the legislation than that, but that's how I sort of keep it simple so I can remember it, and that's what I would encourage people to do. We've always tried to work with people and persuade them to adhere to the regulations, and that has been our stance from the start, and we've only used enforcement and fixed penalties as a last resort. Now, what's happened over the last few weeks is the infection rates, as people will know, have increased, and we now need to play our part in that, in helping bring them back under control. Now, I still very much hope not to have to use enforcement, but looking particularly at some of these larger events, and we're getting 7, 8 of these most weekends or more on some weekends, where we've got dozens or even hundreds of people congregating illegally, despite being told many times not to. It's got to stop, and if we have to use enforcement to make it stop, then that's what we'll have to do. Because I've got officers who I would much rather were policing neighbourhoods and helping our communities abide by these new rules that I'm having to bring together to police these larger events. So my plea to the public is, please don't hold these large events. I think we often forget, because we're looking at the rising infection rate, that it is only a small minority of people who are breaching the guidelines, and that's from all sorts of communities and right across Greater Manchester who are both playing the part, but in smaller numbers not playing the part. And I do thank those that have stuck by the rules right through that really difficult lockdown period and have stuck by them ever since. And frankly, they're being let down by those that are not doing. And it's the classic example, this, of a small number of people spoiling things for the majority. And my role and our role in GMP is to stop that from happening, to make sure everybody does what they're asked to do. We've seen large events taking place, illegally over the last few weekends, and we tend to get more of those when the sun is shining. It is a very good weather forecast again for this weekend, so we will bring in officers together every evening to make sure that we've got the capacity to respond both to those larger events, but also, let's not forget that Greater Manchester is a busy place outside of the COVID regulations. We do get many hundreds of calls for other important matters over a weekend, and we need to be able to respond to those as well. But as I said before, my plea to the public is, please, if you don't have these large events, I can return officers back to neighbourhoods, and we can provide a much better policing response to the whole public of Greater Manchester.